Hi, Greenhouse family. Love you all and praying for you. And today I wanted to talk to you parents about something very important. It's sharing your testimony with your child. Have you told your child about when you decided to follow Jesus? Each of us individually have to make that choice. Are we going to follow Jesus and let him be Lord of our life or not? And so I just encourage you families, talk to your kids about the time when you made that decision to follow Jesus. There's great perseverance that can be learned through the faithful testimony of those who came before us. I thought about David in Psalms 22 when he is so discouraged. He is ready to give up. He feels like God is so far from him. And yet then he is reminded by the faithful testimony of those who came before him of how faithful God is. And so I'm going to read to you real quick. It starts with, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish. My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Yet, and here's where God reminds him of the faithful testimony of those who have come before him. You are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel praises. In you, our ancestors put their trust, and they trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved, and in you they trusted and were not put to shame. And you can just hear David being encouraged by those testimonies of those who came before him. Our kids need our encouragement through our testimonies. They need to know that this book isn't just God isn't just only in the scripture. I mean, this is his word, but he always was and always will be. And this same God who was encouraging David is encouraging them today. And so your testimony, parents, will have great credibility to your kids understanding the dynamic workings of God in their lives. So I just encourage you. I know it can be intimidating sharing that decision to follow Jesus sometimes, depending on what your life looked like before. When we choose to not follow Jesus, it gets messy and yucky. And sometimes afterwards it does too. But our kids need to know what it was that made us make that decision, what made us want to commit to Jesus being the King of our lives. And so I just really encourage you. I went to a children's minister conference years ago, and they suggested that a great way to share a testimony with our kids is to break it down into God, sin, Jesus. And when we start talking about the plans that God had for our lives, that who he says I am, who he created me to be. But then sin came in and I allowed it to take over. And what that did to my life, instead of what God said I was, and then how Jesus came back in, transformed me back into the creature that God created me to be. He gave me the fullness of life. He enabled me to follow Jesus or to be the best that God wanted me to be. And so I think when we're honest about where we've come from, that transformation that Jesus made in our lives, it really empowers our kids. It encourages them. It gives us credibility and helps our kids to trust us more. I can tell you with my kids, they feel much more comfortable sharing struggles that they are going through because they have heard that God has been faithful in my past, and God has been faithful in my parents' past and the generations before them. And so I just really encourage you, if your family isn't one that has passed down testimonies or how they decided to follow Jesus, let this be the beginning of that tradition. It's a wonderful tradition to have. And so I just encourage you, parents, you were created to be these children's parents in this moment, and you are given the perfect testimony for that child. So I love you guys, and I just really encourage you, parents, this week, let's share our testimonies with our kids and just teach them how to persevere because God is so faithful.